wealthy bachelor makes a reckless bet to marry an undesirable woman, never expecting to fall in love. But when the truth behind the bet comes out, hearts are shattered. Can love built on lies survive? In a world of betrayal and redemption, one man must fight to reclaim the love he never knew he needed. The night buzzed with laughter, clinking glasses, and the hum of an expensive lifestyle. Chike Agbo leaned back in his chair, swirling the champagne in his glass, his eyes drifting over the crowd gathered in Kunle's mansion. The elite of Lagos, business moguls, celebrities, and socialites, paraded around in their designer outfits, displaying wealth and status like trophies. It was all so familiar. Chike, a tall, handsome man in his mid-30s, was used to this scene. As the CEO of one of Nigeria's largest oil companies, and with lucrative real estate ventures under his belt, he had more wealth than most could ever dream of. Yet, despite all the luxury, Chike felt empty. There was always a restlessness in his heart that even his success couldn't fill. "Chike, you're too quiet tonight. You're thinking too much again," Kunle's voice interrupted, bringing him back to the present. Chike offered a small smile. "Just taking it all in. It's the same faces, same conversations." Kunle, a stout man with a mischievous glint in his eye, chuckled. "And yet you're still bored. What's wrong? None of these fine women catching your eye?" Chike looked around at the women in the room, all flawlessly dressed, laughing too loudly at jokes that weren't funny. He sighed. "It's always the same. They chase the money, not the man." Kunle laughed, shaking his head. "Always so cynical. You think you're some kind of ladies' man, don't you? Talking about how you can have any woman you want?" "It's not about being a ladies' man, Kunle. It's just reality. Success attracts people. Everyone wants something," Chike said, his voice tinged with bitterness. Kunle's eyes lit up, always eager for a challenge. "All right then, if you're so sure of yourself, I have a bet for you." Chike's interest was piqued. "A bet? What kind of bet?" Kunle leaned forward, lowering his voice. "You say you can get any woman to fall for you. How about this? I bet you can't marry a woman who is completely different from the ones you usually go for." Chike raised an eyebrow. "Different? What do you mean by different?" Kunle's grin widened. "I'm talking about someone who isn't a size 2, who doesn't wear designer clothes or flutter around in high society. In fact, I saw a woman the other day, a baker. She's bigger than most, and probably not someone you'd even glance at twice." Chike chuckled, amused. "So, you're challenging me to marry an overweight woman?" Kunle nodded. "Exactly. But not just marry her. I bet you can't keep her as your wife for 6 months. If you can, I'll give you that prime piece of land in Lekki you've been after." Chike's eyes flashed. The land Kunle was referring to was worth millions, and Chike had been trying to acquire it for months. It was an offer too tempting to ignore. But beyond the prize, there was his pride. Kunle's smugness was irritating, and Chike never backed down from a challenge. "All right," Chike said, his voice firm. "You've got yourself a deal. But remember, you're going to regret underestimating me." Kunle extended his hand with a sly grin. "Good luck, my friend. You're going to need it." The sun beat down on Lagos the next morning as Chike drove through the crowded streets, far from the familiar luxury of his world. The market was alive with vendors hawking their wares. Fruits, vegetables, fabrics, and the scent of spices filled the air. This was not the kind of place Chike usually found himself, but today he had a mission. Kunle had mentioned a bakery in the heart of the market, and after asking a few vendors, Chike found it. Ngozi's Delight, the small wooden sign read. He hesitated outside, unsure of what to expect. He wasn't just about to win a bet, he was stepping into unfamiliar territory. He pushed the door open and was greeted by the warm scent of freshly baked bread and cakes. Behind the counter, a woman was kneading dough with confident hands, her apron tight around her curvy frame. This was Ngozi. Her thick black hair was pulled back into a bun, and her face, round and kind, bore a gentle but weary expression. She was nothing like the women Chike usually pursued. She was real. No pretensions, no airs, just herself. Ngozi looked up, surprised to see a man dressed in an expensive suit standing in her humble bakery. She wiped her hands on her apron and offered a polite smile. "Good morning. Can I help you with something?" Chiki flashed his most charming smile, feeling the weight of Kunle's bet in the back of his mind. "I'm Chiki. I couldn't help but notice your bakery as I was passing by. It smells incredible in here." Ngozi blinked, clearly taken aback by his polished appearance, an unusual compliment. "Thank you. What would you like to buy?" Cheek hadn't planned this far ahead. He hadn't come to buy anything. He was here to win her over. "I was wondering if you'd like to have dinner with me tonight," Cheek said, trying to sound casual, though he felt a twinge of uncertainty. This wasn't how he usually approached women. Ngozi's eyes narrowed slightly, and she folded her arms across her chest. "Dinner? With you?" Her voice was calm, but laced with suspicion. Cheek nodded confidently, despite the awkwardness of the situation. "Yes, I'd love to get to know you better." Ngozi studied him for a long moment, her skepticism clear. "You don't seem like the kind of man who would come to this part of town for dinner. Why are you really here?" Chike paused. She was sharp, much sharper than he had anticipated. Most women would have been flattered or flustered by his offer, but Ngozi seemed unmoved. He decided to lean into honesty, partially. "I saw your bakery and I was curious. I won't lie, this isn't a place I'd usually come to, but something about you caught my attention." Ngozi's expression softened, though a hint of wariness remained. "I can't leave until my shift ends at 6. Chaik nodded, relieved that she hadn't outright rejected him. 6:30 then? Ngozi hesitated, then gave a small, reluctant smile. "All right, 6:30. As Chike left the bakery, his thoughts were muddled. This wasn't just a bet anymore. Something about Ngozi intrigued him. She wasn't falling for his usual charm, and that, strangely, made him want to try harder. Chike arrived at the bakery promptly at 6:30 that evening, feeling a strange nervousness he wasn't used to. Ngozi emerged from the shop wearing a simple dress, her hair down in soft curls. She looked different from earlier in the day, still not the glamorous woman he was used to, but beautiful in a way that was quiet, unpretentious. As they drove through the city in Chike's sleek black car, Ngozi sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap. The silence between them was thick, and Chike wasn't sure how to bridge the gap. This wasn't going to be as easy as he had thought. When they arrived at the restaurant, Chike noticed that Ngozi seemed uncomfortable with the opulence around her. The white tablecloths, crystal glasses, and waiters in suits, it was all a far cry from the cozy bakery she called home. "I don't usually eat in places like this," Ngozi said quietly as they sat down, her eyes scanning the menu. Chike smiled, trying to put her at ease. "That's all right. Tonight's on me." Ngozi gave him a small, hesitant smile. "It's not the money. It's just, this isn't my world. I prefer something simpler." Chaik nodded, appreciating her honesty. The women he usually dated would have been showing off on social media by now, excited to be seen in such an expensive place. But not Ngozi. She wasn't interested in any of it. He found himself liking that about her. As the evening progressed, the conversation began to flow more easily. Ngozi talked about her bakery, how she had started it with nothing after her father passed away, and how she had worked tirelessly to make it successful. Her passion for her work was evident, and Chike found himself genuinely interested. "You've built something incredible, Ngozi," Chike said, meaning it. "It's not easy to start from scratch and make something of yourself." Ngozi shrugged, her expression turning slightly sad. "I don't know if I'd call it incredible. People don't exactly respect me for it. They see my size first, judge me for that, and don't even bother to see what I've accomplished. It's hard sometimes." Cheek felt a pang of guilt. He had been one of those people, judging her before even getting to know her. He had come here for a bet, but now, listening to her, he realized there was so much more to her than he had expected. "You shouldn't care what they think," Chiki said softly. "You've done something most people could never do. That's impressive." Ngozi glanced at him, surprised by his sincerity. "You really think so?" "I know so," Chike replied. For the rest of the evening, the conversation was easy, natural. Cheek found himself enjoying her company more than he had anticipated. She was funny, smart, and refreshingly real. By the time he dropped her off at her modest home, he realized he had genuinely enjoyed himself. As he watched her disappear into the house, Chike sat in his car for a moment, thinking. This had started as a bet, but now it felt like something more, and that scared him. Over the next few weeks, Chike visited Ngozi's bakery almost every day. He brought her flowers, sometimes small gifts, and spent hours talking with her about her business. She was cautious at first, always waiting for the catch, but gradually she began to let her guard down. Their relationship grew slowly, organically. Chike found himself looking forward to his time with her. She wasn't like the women he had known, those who fawned over his wealth or tried to impress him. Ngozi was real. She cared about her work, her family, and her simple life. And for the first time in his life, Chike started to see value in things beyond material success. But even as their bond deepened, Chike was haunted by the bet. He knew he had to tell her eventually, but every time he thought about it, fear gripped him. What if she hated him? What if he lost her forever? He had never felt this way about anyone before, and the thought of losing her was unbearable. One evening, after they had spent the day visiting different suppliers for her bakery, Ngozi asked him, "Why are you doing all this, Chike? Why me? You could have anyone. I don't understand." Chike looked at her, his heart racing. "I don't know. I didn't expect this either. But you make me feel like myself. You don't care about all the superficial stuff. You just care." Ngozi smiled, though uncertainty still lingered in her eyes. "I've never had someone like you take an interest in me. It feels too good to be true sometimes." Chike swallowed hard, guilt gnawing at him. He wanted to tell her the truth right then, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he took her hand and squeezed it gently. "It's real, Ngozi. I promise." By the time a month had passed, Chike knew he had fallen for Ngozi. This wasn't just about winning a bet anymore. He had never felt this way about anyone before. She made him see the world differently, made him question everything he had once believed about success and happiness. So when Cheek decided to propose, it wasn't just for the bet. He wanted her in his life for real. He took Ngozi to a quiet restaurant, away from the glitz and glamour, somewhere she would feel comfortable. After dinner, he got down on one knee and pulled out a small diamond ring. Ngozi gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Cheek, what are you doing?" Chike smiled, his heart pounding. "Ngozi, I know this might seem sudden, but I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Tears welled up in Ngozi's eyes as she stared at the ring, then back at Cheek. I don't know what to say. Are you sure, Cheek? Are you really sure?" Cheek nodded, his voice steady. "More sure than I've ever been." Ngozi's hands trembled as she reached for the ring. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." The wedding was small and intimate, not the grand event Cheek's friends had expected. Cheek had insisted on keeping it simple, just close family and friends. Ngozi's mother, Mama Ajima, cried tears of joy as she watched her daughter walk down the aisle in a simple white dress. Cheek's heart swelled with emotion as he watched Ngozi approach, looking more radiant than he had ever seen her. For a moment, everything felt perfect. But as the ceremony went on, Cheek couldn't shake the weight of his guilt. He had won her over, married her, but the secret of the bet still hung over him like a dark cloud. He knew it was only a matter of time before the truth came out. And when it did, he feared he would lose everything. The truth came out at a party, as most secrets do. It had been 3 months since the wedding, and Chike and Ngozi's life together was growing more stable, more real. They had started talking about expanding her bakery into multiple locations, and Chike found himself enjoying his role as her business partner as much as her husband. But one evening, at a gathering with friends, Kunle, drunk and careless, let slip the truth about the bet. "You know Chike only married Ngozi because of a bet, right?" Kunle laughed, his words slurred. It was all just a game at first. I never thought he'd actually go through with it. Ngozi overheard the conversation from across the room, her face going pale. She stood frozen, the world spinning around her. Slowly she turned to Kunle, her voice trembling. "What did you say?" she whispered. Kunle's laughter died instantly. He looked at her, realizing too late what he had done. "Ngozi, it's not what it sounds like." But it was too late. Ngozi fled the room, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't believe it. Her marriage, her love for Chike, it had all been based on a lie. She felt humiliated, betrayed, and utterly heartbroken. That night, Ngozi packed her bags and left. When Chike returned home and saw her suitcase by the door, his heart dropped. He ran to her pleading, "Ngozi, wait, please let me explain." Tears streamed down her face as she shook her head. "Explain what, Cheek? That my entire marriage is a joke? That I was just part of some bet?" "It started as a bet, but it's not a bet anymore," Chiki said desperately. "I swear I love you. I fell in love with you, Ngozi. You changed me." Ngozi's face crumpled as she choked back sobs. "How can I believe anything you say now? You lied to me, Chiki. You broke my heart." She left without another word, leaving Cheek standing alone in the empty house. In the weeks that followed, Chiki was a broken man. He couldn't focus on work, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. All he could think about was Ngozi, how he had hurt her, how much he needed her in his life. The land in Lekki didn't matter anymore. His wealth, his success, it was all meaningless without her. He tried everything to win her back. He sent her flowers, wrote her letters, tried to call her, but Ngozi wouldn't respond. She had moved back in with her mother, Mama Ejima, who was furious when she found out about the bet. "You are not a man, Chike," Mama Ejima spat when he came to her house one day, begging to speak to Ngozi. "You toyed with my daughter's heart. You will never see her again." Chike left, defeated, but he refused to give up. He knew he had to make things right, no matter how long it took. One day, after weeks of trying, Ngozi finally agreed to see him. They met at her bakery, the place where it had all started. Ngozi stood behind the counter, her face pale and drawn. The warmth that had once been there now replaced with sadness. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Chaik," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "You broke my heart. How can I trust you again?" Chiki knelt before her, his voice thick with emotion. "I know I hurt you, Ngozi. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I love you. I never expected to fall in love with you, but I did. You changed me. Please, give me a chance to make this right." Ngozi looked at him, her eyes filled with tears. "I don't know if I can." Cheek's heart sank, but he nodded. "I'll wait for as long as it takes. I'll do whatever it takes." It took time, but slowly, Ngozi began to soften. She saw the genuine change in Chike, the way he had humbled himself, the way he was willing to do whatever it took to earn her forgiveness. In the end, it wasn't grand gestures that won her back, but Cheek's sincerity. He showed her that his love was real, that it wasn't just about winning a bet anymore. He cared about her, truly cared. One evening, as they sat together in her bakery, just the two of them, Ngozi spoke quietly. "I'm willing to give us another chance, but I need you to understand something, Chike. Love is not a game. If you hurt me again, there won't be a third chance." Cheek nodded, his heart swelling with relief and gratitude. "I swear, Ngozi, I will never take you for granted again." They renewed their vows in a simple ceremony, surrounded by close family and friends. There were no cameras, no media, just love. And this time, their marriage was built on something real, something lasting. Ngozi opened her dream bakery, Ngozi's Delight, in a prime location in Victoria Island, with Chike by her side, supporting her every step of the way. The scars of the past were still there, but together, they had found a way to heal. And as they stood together at the grand opening of the bakery, watching customers stream in, Ngozi smiled up at Chike. "I never thought I'd be standing here," she said softly. Cheek smiled back, taking her hand. "Neither did I. But I'm glad I am." For the first time in his life, Chiki felt truly content. He had won more than just a bet. He had won the love of a woman who had changed him forever. The end. Thank you for joining me on this thrilling journey. If you enjoyed the story and want more twists and turns, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for the next one. Your support means everything. See you soon.